Hello and welcome to episode 139 of Ferg on the Freak. I'm that bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewLP. And joining me is the exalted League Freak. You can find on Twitter at League Freak. How are you there, mate?
I'm very good, Andrew. How are you today?
Oh, mate, I'm just basking in your exaltingness.
Well, I like to exalt on a daily basis. It's one of my favourite things to do, actually.
And you do it well.
Yeah.
And joining us as well is the glorious Katey. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Oh, look, I'm doing good. You know, I just rock up here and just do this stuff one take, and I'm just perfect at everything I do. So, you know, I can't complain.
True professionals.
Absolutely. Now,
they call you one-take Ferguson.
Yeah, I don't know who they are.
They don't call him that for nothing.
No. They're very good liars too. Now, if you haven't heard, I mean, obviously this week the NRL, I suppose, I don't know if they didn't really release their ad. Some media outlets released it for them because it's not on the NRL website, but it's the NRL ad for 2020 with the rehashing of Simply The Best by Tina Turner from 1990. And obviously we've had a bit of a split in whether people like it or not. The Daily Telegraph and Fox Sports media people hate it because of their dickheads, and the fans are perfectly fine with it. League Freak here, though, has not seen it.
Yeah, I purposefully avoided it because I wanted to have a fresh perspective, and I thought I'll watch it on the podcast, and so that's what we're about to do. So we're gonna play the advert. I'm gonna see it for the first time, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Alrighty, so are you ready to go?
I'm ready. Yeah.
All right. Hopefully this works with audio.
Call you, I need you, my heart's on fire. You come to me wild and wild.
Together today as the Super League war tears the code apart.
And it can't be wrong. Take my heart and make it strong, babe.
You're simply the best. Better than all the rest. Better than anyone I've ever met.
Each time you leave me,
To Brigginshaw takes them on. Welcome, Warriors. And the private Preston Campbell. Workers march today in protest. Inside for Elba. Elba will score. Newcastle. Dancing in the streets of Newcastle. He hits it. He's got it. He's got the field goal. A big moment for equality. What an inspiration.
So,
Wow.
thoughts?
That was awesome. I fucking loved it. That was incredible.
Yeah, I think it was pretty damn good.
Yeah, I loved the way that it looked at all the parts of rugby league history and just all of these little moments in the game. I liked the part where it had Latrell Mitchell in the Aboriginal flag and the little girl singing the song, and then they were playing on the beach. I liked that. I can't believe anyone wouldn't like that ad. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. Wow. Damn, I really liked that one, actually. I was prepared.
See? That's crazy because you were like, oh, I need football in it. I need, like,
some background music with football,
Yeah, and
and it's like,
but it's got lots of football moments in it, and it's a lot of. The funny thing is, right, that advert has a lot of football moments that are important in my lifetime, I guess. Like, there wasn't much from the 80s in there and going back.
I think that's fair
well,
though.
I think though it's trying to cover the period from when the song was used in 1990 to now, so that's why there's no 80 stuff in there.
Yeah, and it I really liked it. I do think there was a part in the end where it felt a bit shoehornish, where, and people have said that there's been virtue signaling in it, right? And towards the end, I guess there was a little bit of that in it, but overall, I loved it.
I don't think the virtual signaling stuff that was in there was over the top or excessive. I think it was just the right amount. I wouldn't even call it virtue signaling. I think it's trying to send a message that the game includes everyone, doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah, and I guess sorry, Katey, what were you going to say?
I think it would be more virtue signaling if they had elements that had nothing to do with people who play the game.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Like if they had an Aboriginal flag, but there was absolutely no Aboriginals that played. Or they had gay people, but there was no gay people that played.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not virtue signaling. That's representing people who make the game what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Because without the players, there's no game.
Yeah, it covers everyone who's involved in the game. We do have gay people involved in the game. I think one of the referees is homosexual. We've got women, obviously. We've got people of all different races, colours, religions, except for Israel Folau.
And I mean, where does it get to a point where they're like, they can be represented? I mean, the men that play the game that are white, straight, men have been represented since the very beginning. Where do we get to a point where we're like, these people can have a place and they can be celebrated without having to be overshadowed by the people that have always been represented?
Obviously, I haven't done the numbers on, but I'd argue that 2020 will probably have the smallest percentage of white men playing the game than ever before in the history of the game, because there's so many people from New Zealand, people from England, obviously, and people from obviously the Pacific Islands and the like, as well as all of the Aboriginals that are now playing the game as well. It's not a game for white men anymore.
This is a silly question.
But it never has been, really.
No, it hasn't.
This is going to sound silly, right? I watched that advert. Were people complaining that there weren't enough white players in it?
I think the complaints were about the fact that there was... They won't say it, but I think some of the complaints were about the fact there were women in there. There was the gay moment in there.
And political correctness.
There was a lot of focus on Latrell Mitchell and the flag and how, he and a lot of the Indigenous players were disrespectful to the national anthem and stuff like that. Those people seem to forget too that the game decided that they wouldn't play the national anthem at the All-Stars match.
Yeah.
It wasn't a protest that was held. The game said, you know what, if they don't like it, we won't play it.
We just won't play it, yeah. Because I watched that advert and it didn't jump out. It wasn't something that jumped out at me.
No.
Was the races of the players. And that stuff tends to go over my head anyway. Like, I mean, I'm looking through it and I'm thinking, I love that they had John Sutton in there, because that might have been my favourite part of the advert, because he has played more games for South Sydney than any other player in the history of the whole club, this club that has this amazing, beautiful history in the game. And they had him there, and it showed South coming back into the competition and stuff. And so I wasn't looking at things like that. I think that advert seriously was just an absolute home run for rugby league, and it's something that I will go back through and watch that again and again, because there's little bits and pieces, like they showed the Super League war in there and just little bits. I really liked it. I thought it was great.
I saw a comment from a guy who was like, if the South's history of them leaving and coming back is in the ad, why isn't the Melbourne salary cap scandal in it where they lost their premierships? I was like, how can you compare a foundation team's unfair removal from the competition to systematic cheating?
Yeah.
How can you
trying to-
compare those two things?
Well, you're trying to celebrate the game. Why would you put the miseries in there? It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
oh,
Why-
why
you
did they show?
cannot
Why didn't they show the
celebrate-
sharks walking around trying to avoid,
Yeah.
the press and stuff
You
during this
can't
data
celebrate
investigation? And,
Like,
yeah,
why are people comparing these things? Why do they try to
because,
make everything?
Because there's
awful?
people who follow the game, mostly journalists and the idiots who follow them without having a mind of their own to think, wonder if that's true or not, who exist just to shit on the game. It's a sad truth, I guess.
Wasn't there an article because I really did try and avoid all of the stuff so I could go in without any idea of what I was about to watch, right? And so I saw a lot of people going off about something that Paul Kent wrote. Now I didn't go and read it because I didn't want anything to spoil my reaction to the video. So what was it that Paul Kent was saying?
I've signed a paywall, so I don't really know, but he would have just been whinging about how it was.
They're losing touch. With the
losing
fans.
touch. That's what it was. Because I remember making a comment via the podcast Twitter account this morning saying how the bit where a journo who's out of the touch with the fans criticised the NRL for being out of touch with the fans was the funniest part of the article.
Yeah, that's a weird one because I like watching that thing. There's two things that focuses on: the fans and the players. And
yeah,
what more?
I've
always said
that might be the problem.
Yeah, there's no journos in there.
There's no journos getting the plug in there. I think what these guys would have wanted is it was just a lineup for 2 minutes of just showing all the journos who shit on the game for 2 minutes. They'd have loved that.
We could do that
why
video
people are
for the
getting
website.
cranky. Like,
What was that, Katey?
some Roosters fans are like, oh, Roosters weren't shown enough. I'm like, there's literally a whole segment on Fox where I have to watch the back of the Roosters players' heads watching the grand final. How are they not represented in things? Like,
I'll tell you,
they're
he's not represented in there. The West Tigers are hardly seen in there, and Penrith are hardly seen in there.
As a Panthers fan, though, like if we've got to have like 3.5 seconds, I'll take Scotty Sattler's tackle. I'll take that. I'm happy with that.
But this is the thing: too many people will sit there, and they're fans of clubs that were underrepresented, and Penrith and the Tigers can be two, and they'll say, "Oh, but we weren't represented much in there." There's a reason for that, and that's because your team's hardly done any fucking thing.
Well, that's what I thought about my team, so I was pretty happy we were in there, but I was like...
Every team's in there.
Yeah, my team's
Every
in there.
team's in there. So, everyone's been
I
covered.
was like, sucked into all those people that don't like Guffo. He's there in the tunnel. Idiot.
It was nice that they represented the New South Wales Cup, wasn't it?
Yeah, they made sure they got the lower grade players in there too.
Yeah, that was
yeah.
of them. I love that advert. I think that's got to be in the top 5 adverts they've ever done. I like the use of the song. I think I was worried that they were going to use the song and it just felt stale. But the way they used it and the way they used it in the background more than anything, I loved that. I love the imagery. I love the selecting parts of the history of the game over the last 30 years. I can't see a downside to any of it. And the NRL should be congratulated. They did an amazing job. I would love to see them follow it up in a couple of years from now with what you get is what you see. I think that would be incredible and a similar sort of thing.
Absolutely. Well, Fox Sports have put out an article, and no one had the balls to put their name to it because the source is Fox Sports.
Okay. They've gone with Fox Sports now. They've got rid of Starfighters.
Starfighters have been sacked. Too abrasive.
Yeah.
And And they've written this article with the headline, Fans Expose Embarrassing NRL Blunders in Remake of Iconic 90s Tina Turner TV Ad.
Okay.
That's a very wordy heading for Fox Sports.
Yeah.
And they've gone through and just picked apart little parts of it which were, probably a bit incorrect. And while they may be right, they're completely missing the point.
Yeah.
So the first one is the Trebojevic boys as two little boys playing in 1996.
Mm-hmm.
Tom
But
was
that could be
born,
explained away.
of course, but they're just saying like Tom was born in October 96, so he would have been in a crib.
Yeah,
And
but
like-
it could have been his
But it
brother
doesn't-
looking at him in a crib, being
Oh,
like, one day we're going to be playing.
It just doesn't matter
Like,
though, does
who
it?
cares?
Yeah.
Clearly too old, and people are sitting there. And the funny thing is, one of the accounts that they've, one of the Twitter accounts they've quoted on here is one that's been only set up like in the last few weeks
Yeah.
and has no followers
Yeah.
and has spent most of today attacking a lot of people who are
Is that
okay with
Bob?
the ad. That's Bob.
Yeah, me and Bob had words.
Yes, he had a few words with me. He called me a fat loser. All of my books are shit. So word for you, Bob. I've only written one, you dickhead. He called me a fat unemployed hack, and I shouldn't give up my day job. I don't plan to.
That's some.
What did I say to Bob?
That's some,
And that's just because I said that I was fine with it, and I was just mocking him and egging him on, but I wasn't abusing him until I called him a village idiot. Well, I didn't just call him a village idiot. I said if you round up all the village idiots and put them in a village full of village idiots, in that village of village idiots, he would be the village idiot. You got a bit cranky about that.
You should be a fucking author, man. Shit.
It's easier to write than it is for me to talk.
What did I
I
say
tell
to
you
Bob?
what, it's you don't want to start calling somebody names that's 6'2" and built like a brick shit house, Bob. Fucking calm
Oh,
down.
wait.
Man.
Yeah,
Oh.
Bob's a bit of a cranky one.
He said, He said to me, what has this got to do with footy? I said, they're footy players, Bob, you fucking cabbage. Like, what else could be more footy than footy players?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob, let's be honest, Bob's just a bit of a pot plant.
Wow. See, I missed all of this today because I was avoiding it.
But he's like, we want big hits, we want this, we want that. I'm like, mate, you want big hits and people want shoulder charges. They were banned.
Yeah.
Like, in 2013. They can't show it in an ad in 2020 and say, this is what you're going to see, because you're fucking not. You can't hope for an ad that represents a game that doesn't exist anymore. So get over it.
That's
It's
a
in
good
the past.
And you know, the other thing is too, like rugby league is very lucky that it has so many different elements of the game. So, like, yeah, we've got the big hits, right? But with the skill and the speed and stuff is something that is just as amazing. But I think the thing about this ad that got me was that it showed how many points in the game's recent history were moments that I think about as almost markers in time, you know, and it shows how important rugby league is to a rugby league fan. You know, I think like somebody will say to me, "Oh, remember when you did this?" And I'll think like I don't know what year that was, but I sure as hell remember the first time I heard about Super League, and I sure as hell remember when South fans marched 80,000 strong through the street. I remember where I was when Darren Albert crossed the line and scored. I remember jumping off my chair when Benji Marshall did that ridiculous flick pass in a grand
I was
final.
in my nana's spa.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like this advert. It was. I really loved it. I don't see how anyone can complain about it, and I think that for these journalists to take a contrarian view of it, it just shows how out of touch and how much they are outsiders. They're not part of the game.
They love it. They love creating this gender divide. They love creating all these like class divides and
Yeah.
race divides, because if people are fighting amongst themselves, they're not calling them out for what they're really doing
Yep,
because they're
100%.
too distracted.
And the thing is too, the women's rugby league has been around for a longer time than just being the NRL competition. And the thing about it that I absolutely love compared to other sports is that, like, the women's players are players. Like, you could sit down and talk to a women's player about playing rugby league, and like they beat the hell out of each other. They've got skill. Like, it's not like
Yeah.
you watch them and I've said this before on the podcast. You can sit down and watch a women's game, and it is so bloody enjoyable. Like, it's just
Yeah.
a game, and they're not an outside part of the game. They're part of the game as the men's game is. Anybody that's trying to divide it and say that, well, they're showing too much of the women's footy, they're idiots. They're absolute idiots, and you shouldn't be listening to them.
Next year, I hope the NRL does something that involves more women in the ad, because next year will be 100 years since the first women's game in Australia.
That'd be amazing.
That's how long it's been around for. So they played a game in May 1921. Oh, sorry, it was in June, July 1921. And that was all set up by the ladies. The New South Wales Rugby League had bugger all to do with it. And they were very quick to abandon any sort of interest or support in when they saw how successful and how good the women were. And that was part of the reason why it folded so quickly.
And imagine getting pissed off that it took 100 years for women to be in the ad.
Yeah.
But
It's like, are you kidding?
But they've done it with so much class and humility. They've not made a scene or a fuss about it. They haven't tried to have some sort of agenda thing about it. They just said, we just want to play the game. Let us do that. And the thing that's been great about the Women's Rugby League is the fans have accepted it as rugby league. Like, there hasn't been this trying to sexualize the players and go, oh, she's the hottest player and all sort of crap. That just hasn't happened. People have just gone, look at what she does. Look how great this player is. It's just more rugby league is how it's been seen. I think that is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, they had Ali Brigginshaw in there, who I know that other players have won awards. I consider Ali Brigginshaw to be the best women's rugby league player in the world. The way she reads the game, her skill level, and what she can do with the ball, it's just incredible what she can do. So I loved seeing her in the ad. But yeah, it's fantastic. I thought that advert, man, it's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Well, shall I tell you about a few of the other gaffes, according to the Fox Sports nameless person who wrote this article that they come across? Because some of them are a bit bitchy more than anything. Okay. The second one was about, they go to great lengths to try and make this one look like it's false. And it was John Sutton at the 2000 rally to get South reinstated.
Yeah.
And they're saying, but Sutton didn't play for South until 2004, meaning that there could be no jumper with his name on.
But the jumpers don't have names.
Well, this is the thing. When I had my 13th, 14th birthday, I got a footy jumper with my name on the back of it and a number on there, because they had these things called iron-on transfers, and they've been around for decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have just ironed it on if you wanted to. Yeah.
And like John Sutton too, he is a dead set through the junior grades, come into first grade, has played more games for South than anyone ever, and he's going to retire a Rabbitoh. Like, there's nobody that has ever played the game that is more South Sydney than John Sutton. Like, why would that be a problem for anyone?
They're trying to make something negative out of it for the sake
of junior.
It bugs me because John Sutton's Rabbitohs, Latrell Mitchell's an Aboriginal. The two girls, they're lesbians. It doesn't have to represent all Aboriginals. It doesn't have to represent every South Sydney player or fan. It doesn't have to represent every lesbian, but it represents them, and they are the league players.
Yeah,
they are the ones that play the game. So why can't the ad about their game represent them as individuals. Like, why does everything have to be about everyone?
Yeah, and it's not like it's weird that some people feel as though there's got to be all the boxes ticked. Like when I watch that advert, I look at it and I say, well, that represents rugby league over the last 30 years. I'm not looking at it and saying, oh, have they represented me in there? Where's my representation? And I don't know why anybody would be looking for that in themselves, you know?
I don't understand it.
Yeah,
Because-
it's very strange.
I think it's because a lot of people who follow the News Limited, droll, they want to be outraged about something, so they will go looking for it no matter where, no matter how obscure it is, and even if it's not there. I mean, we saw it with the whole reporting of Latrell Mitchell in the off-season about him getting in a car, like, whoop-de-doo. But they made a big song and dance about the car he's in.
I think as well, people who have never had to struggle with society based on who they are won't understand it because they've never had to fight to get where they are. It's like if one of these guys who are whinging, if they're a white guy, they're good at football, then, like, is it really that hard to do it if you're talented?
Yeah, like
if you're somewhere where you have the opportunity. But if you're a female,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, they don't understand the struggle because they've never had to fight as hard.
Yeah, the fact
Be seen.
that and the women look, I don't know how much the very highest paid women's player earns, but I would suggest it's probably not enough to be a full-time job, right? In fact, I'm certain about that.
Well, I think they all have jobs.
Yeah, and so but I'm sure if you said to the women's players, what's it like to get paid at the level you do right now to play women's NRL footy, they would say it is massive. It is absolutely massive. It was a breakthrough for us, and it's allowed us to go to a different level with our games.
But I bet they'd also say, even if I didn't get paid, even if the stadiums were empty, I'd still be playing the game, and that's what fans have to realise.
Yeah, and like
that we don't make the game.
And they literally were. Like, not that many years ago, they were playing still for clubs that, look, even as a rugby league expert, I don't know the name of the women's clubs that they were playing for before they played in the NRL competition, the women's NRL competition. Just in the last 5 years, how far the women's game has come, the thought that we wouldn't celebrate that is kind of weird in itself. You know,
Yeah.
I don't understand why that would be a problem.
And I mean, I showed my daughter the video. You know what I told you about my daughter? She was so excited to see two girls kissing that play football. She's like, oh my God. So it doesn't matter if you want to play football if you like girls.
Yeah.
I'm like, of course it doesn't. You can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Exactly
and it's like
right.
all these other people are telling them that it's wrong. It's like you're grown adults telling people that who they love means that they can't play the sport that they want to play. Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, it's absurd. It's really absurd.
Yeah. And the thing is too, and I really don't understand look, if a dog was the best player in the world, they would be the highest paid player in the world. I wouldn't care that was a dog, you know? And so I don't understand why people are upset about the breakdown, whether it be racially or sexually or however they want, religion. Like, I don't understand why people want to break footy players down, because at the end of the day, they're footy players, you know, and they have something, they love doing something that you love watching or that you've loved playing in the past. They've got so much more in common with you than somebody else in you know, the street. They've got this common love of something that you would have a bond with these people. You know, why would you ever look at them and say there's something that shouldn't be represented? you'd be able to sit down with them in a pub and talk about footy for hours with them. I really don't understand this thing of, wanting to exclude people because they're not you. That's what it comes down to. Some of those people are like, well, I don't think they should be in this ad because they're not me. It's like, maybe that's a good thing.
Of course it is. Look, there was one more inaccuracy, and that was when they showed Hazem Masri on there in his last game. The caption said it was 2010, and his actually last game was 2009. So we've had 3 what they call gaffes. One could be completely written off completely because it just didn't matter, and 2 others were who cares. If that's what it got to, is they picked at those such minor details that
but it's the same people.
Of course it is, but it doesn't change the narrative.
Yeah.
If they had to change the captions to be correct, the ad is still identically
I mean, it's the same
same.
people who said El Masri is a domestic abuser. So
Yeah.
do you really expect much more from them?
So that's the thing though. He just isn't. People will just believe
Yeah,
that.
but you know what I mean? They're the same people who wrote those articles, and it's like they'd rather be first than right.
Exactly.
That's right. Now there was, what was the other thing on here? They had to go about it being politically correct and full of box ticking.
So I didn't think it was, because I did see that during the day. I saw that box ticking thing, and I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. To me, it didn't feel like box ticking. It was just, it showed all of the great moments in rugby league's last 30 years. I don't know, like, what, if somebody's watching that and saying, oh, it's ticking this box and it's ticking this box, maybe they're too aware of, I don't know, things that they're not tolerant of. Maybe it's their problems. I don't know.
It's weird because it's like they want the ad to celebrate mediocrity to avoid celebrating something that they consider politically correct.
Yeah, that's
It's
a really good way of putting it.
What? We're not going to say that these mediocre moments were great just because they involve inconsequential people that don't, like, that aren't of a different race or of different sexuality. Like, what?
Yeah. Did you want me to read out what Paul Kent said?
Yeah, because I saw a lot coming from Paul Kent, and a lot of people were upset about what Paul Kent had said, and so I was like, man, like, he has really not liked this ad, and people have really not liked what he said. So I'm interested to see what he said.
Well, this is some of what was said there. It's in a different ad. It says, it looks like a box-ticking exercise. Bland, politically correct gestures from an NRL losing touch with the great majority of the game's fans as it continues its blind path towards irrelevance. In all, it is an angry ad highlighting everything that has or does divide our society. It overlooks the years of hard work many good people did to make rugby league an inclusive game, a game that actually united communities. Latrell Mitchell's protest is recognised, a proud Mitchell dominating the ad while draped in the Aboriginal flag. The actual reality that Indigenous players almost always bring a light to children's eyes, and that the women's competition is so far ahead of its AFL rival goes unrecognised as the game chooses to focus on other aspects of their contribution. How can he sit there and say that, talks up how rugby leaguers work so hard to be inclusive, and then deride this ad, which is all about inclusiveness?
Yeah, he's contradicting himself.
Yeah, completely. I think what Paul Kent would have liked to see, given that the ad went for 2 minutes, is to have Simply the Best playing while the full 2 minutes of his entire first grade career was played on TV.
Oh, God.
That would have just been him watching the kickoff and then standing there watching actual first grade players play first grade football before he gets taken off the field as part of a reserve grade loophole.
Yeah, man, if he saw all of that in that advert, I don't get it. I didn't see that.
Nah, none of that happened. He's clutching at straws.
He really is.
It's because he's trying to appeal to the people that aren't represented in the ad that are represented in 99% of society so he can cause a stir. He's like, if I piss people off enough, they're going to keep reading me.
Yeah, like I don't know. Was anybody I never really looked at it as needing representation for everyone, right? And I think that there's a thing that once you get to a certain point in your life, you kind of realize that some things weren't made for you, you know? Like, and like you'll see adverts or entertainers or something, and you'll sort of look at them and say, yeah, they're not marketing at me. That's fine. Maybe Paul Kent is at that point in his life where this is an awesome sport where, with all of these awesome moments, all these awesome players, the fans love it. It's super relevant still. It's our most watched sport in Australia. And Paul Kent just feels like they're not marketing at him. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe Paul Kent should go and do something else, eh?
It's like a fish getting the shits that there's a shop full of bird cages. Like, get over it. Doesn't mean that fish tanks don't exist. It just means that there's a shop with bird cages, arsehole.
Andrew, we're going to have to just turn the whole podcast over to Katey, I think, because that's the most amazing thing that's been said on our podcast.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Grow up.
I'll bring it back to something miserable. I've got Rowan Dean's comments here. For those who don't know, Rowan Dean is should we call him a social commentator on Sky News After Dark. He's pretty much like Andrew Bolt, but less famous, and that makes him just a little bit angry.
Okay, kind of like that Steve Price on the radio.
That sort of thing.
Yeah, it's not quite there. It just makes him a bit angry.
He struggles to make a coherent argument without resorting to overusing sarcasm.
Okay.
He's just got a lot of anger in him. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he said here, someone's had a very clever idea. The copywriter or art director has gone, let's show the kids watching the ad and then they grow up and play the game. Fantastic. That was the idea. But then someone else around the committee room said, ooh, but we've got to get in the Aboriginal thing, and we've got to get in the Sheilas, and we've got to do this, and we've got to get in that. And to me, they've utterly destroyed it with that ridiculous shot of the flag on the back. Why bring politics into something like this at a time when politics is dividing the game? And that's the thing. The politics isn't dividing the game. I think that's just an utter lie, that they will just keep pushing
saying the word
harder.
Sheilas in regards to footy players is ruining the game.
Well, that's a reflection. That's a reflection on Rowan Dean, because he's an idiot.
And that's saying something, considering I objectify everyone in the game.
It just shows you, though, that how little interest he has in the women's part of the game. And because he's not a rugby league commentator, he's just a moron who has a fat mouth and talks late at night about shit that no one cares about. That makes him think that he's important. He thinks he can come out here and write this shit, and it's somewhat relevant, and it's not. He's a nobody. A 6-year-old can do his job on Sky News, and I'm not lying. He just has an opinion, and that's it.
I don't know why he thinks he's more important than the 180,000 Sheilas that are registered in women's football in Australia. Why is his opinion more important than theirs?
I don't know why he thinks he's more important than 20-odd million Australians who have a mouth.
Crawl back to your hole, you little peasant.
Yeah, exactly.
Lord have mercy.
I dare say the hole rejected him, so now he's got to find somewhere else to live. Have we been hard enough on Rowan Dean?
And the Aboriginal flag, it's like, so what? Like, how many years has the Australian flag been flown? How many years has the anthem been saying? They're things. A flag is a thing. It's an inanimate object. Why is a flag more important than people?
I don't know. It's the thing. I love how rugby league has been more open and inclusive of Aboriginal players than pretty much any other sport in Australia. AFL still has former greats of the game being racist towards Aboriginal players. You know, even hear about fans and something, all that Adam Good stuff that went on. I don't know what went on there, but, you know, there was racism stuff involved in that.
Yeah.
And it's just part of their game more than anything. And they try and stamp it out where they can in the AFL, but it's something that we don't have to deal with anywhere near as much in rugby league. I think we've got every right to sit there and celebrate the Aboriginal involvement in the game because
Exactly.
we've got some
I mean, it's not like
fucking
it's
amazing
a new
players
thing.
who've been Aboriginal.
Exactly. And the first Aboriginal player played in what, 1909, 1910? It's like, stop acting like they shouldn't be represented. They've been a major part of the game for a long, long time. And when is it all right for them to be there? When is it all right for them to be celebrating? Like, just step back for a minute and realize that they are the game too. That it's their game.
Yeah, and unlike other sports, we don't need to manufacture it either. Like these great players right through the history of the game, you know, they've been some of the best players of all time, and they've been embraced, they've been loved by fans, by the sport itself. We don't need to manufacture those moments like, and particularly the AFL does. So we're very lucky in that sense.
Or highlight the fact that those players are Aboriginal.
Yeah.
You know, it's Latrell Mitchell, it's Greg Inglis, it's Arthur Beetson. You know, they were just absolutely great. And you talk about what they did on the field that made them great. You don't talk about the fact that, he was Aboriginal and that somehow means that he has to be regarded higher. They're all treated equal.
Well, it's like, remember the first time you found out that Laurie Daly was Aboriginal or Gordon Tallis was Aboriginal? Like, it was a fair while into their careers. It just isn't something that you sort of needs to be thrown in your face. It's like, you know, you don't have to be told this player's from this or this player has this background or anything. They're just footy players, and we're lucky in rugby league. We got so much diversity that's natural diversity. You know, we don't have to go out and try and manufacture it.
But I think as long as we live in a society where it's like, people are so shocked that Laurie Daly is Aboriginal, or where people have to come out as being gay, they're always going to have, like, we have to do this. There has to be ads representing them until it's like people stop saying, well, why do they have to be represented? It's like, well, they have to be because you just asked that question.
So, yeah, but I think it's a very small minority that's asking that when they look at this ad, in my opinion. You know, I think most people will watch it and be like, oh, that's a pretty cool footy ad. The problem is a lot of that small minority happens to write for media organisations and gets to have a big voice. And I mean, that's really unfortunate. And look, that's why a lot of these media organisations are absolutely dying out at a huge rate, because they are speaking to a very small group of people rather than the wider community who just sees this as a footy ad and then gets on with life.
Yeah. And people are like, why can't it just be about footy? Like, it is about footy. They're footy players. How more footy can you get celebrating football players?
Exactly. One of the things I would like to ask you two about are, what are some of the moments that would have been cool to add to the advert over rugby league's history over the last 30 years? Like, you know, the one that jumped out at me, why didn't they have Paul Carriage in there? Because he's a marker in history, if you ask me.
Because we could suggest what should have been in there.
Mm.
What great moments have been forgotten or not included in the ad?
Definitely Paul Carriage.
Yeah, well, Paul Kent's 2 minutes. I mean, they could have shown him running either on or off the field.
That would have been good. But what about Alfie Langer singing St. George Can't Play?
Yeah. Oh, man, so many great moments.
What else?
I do like Michael Cheekham's try last year against Brisbane when Brisbane had the game won, and then Cheekham got the ball, and everyone in Brisbane just froze, and he just stepped around 37 players and waltzed in to score the match-winning try.
37.
Yeah, 37. They got most of the people that were in the crowd, the lower grades. They all just stood there, and they just stood around like brown cows watching him run around going, oh, what's he doing with the ball?
What about
we lost.
What about that game in Newcastle where, like, a ridiculous storm come out of nowhere and you had the players hiding behind the signage? Do you remember that?
I do, yes.
Or the Canberra game in the where they played in the snow?
That was against the Tigers.
Yeah.
I do remember that one.
Oh, what about Greg Inglis kicking his field goal when they were 2 down or trying to kick his field goal? That would have been pretty cool.
Terry Lamb did that as well. He did that in 92, I think it was, and he thought the scores were locked, and he kicked a field goal, and then he was told afterwards, after he celebrated kicking the field goal, that they were actually down by 2 points. The classic moment.
Or Trent, the gay airline steward, asking if, like, interviewing all the guys on the footy show. Do you remember that? I have the Red Dragon DVDs, so I watch them a lot.
That's gone back a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember that one, eh?
Don't you remember him?
I remember him, but I don't remember him like interviewing players, eh? I just remember what Matty Johns looked up as him.
He walked in and he's like to Denny Badeiras, he's like, "Are you the hooker?" And then, because he was gay, or his character was gay, he started trying to hump him. And I think that should have been on it. That's awesome.
What about...
Obviously, you guys are being serious, and I'm just like, I have nothing.
What the hell?
We're just not huge fans of the play acting of Matthew Johns.
What you know? What about the entire Solomon Hamono going over to hook up with the pleasure machine again? I think that should have been in there.
Gabrielle Richards.
Yeah, she was a great girl.
Oh dear.
But that's a tough one to follow up with. Wait, actually, you know what? There's one serious one in there I wish I had put in there.
What?
That last try that Roy Simmons scored in the 91 grand final.
Roy Simmons, yeah.
Jumps up in the air and MG catches him.
What about it? Yes, you know, at the end where they had Cameron Smith on the TV celebrating his 400th game. What if they blue screen that out and instead having Barb getting a ring?
That should have been the last bit.
Yeah.
Like, she could have just held up her ring and it just had the NRL logo on it and they just zoomed in on it.
Yeah, full of diamonds, of course.
Did you notice, though, it's not really, like, exposing it as, like, a gaffe with them saying the Trebojevic brothers in 1996, because they had Cameron Smith in 1997 and he's obviously a lot older than them two boys. So it was obvious.
Yeah.
The other thing that's odd, too, is that the TV that Cameron Smith had as a kid was more modern than the one that they had in the Newcastle Sports. Oh, actually, no, that probably makes sense because Newcastle is a bit backwards.
Yeah. It makes. I tell you what, when Newcastle gets flat screen TVs up there, they're going to be really impressed.
That's going to go down well. It's almost like we moved the Tamworth slander just down the coast a little bit.
Well, nah, I shouldn't.
Careful.
Yeah, I shouldn't do it. I'm not going to open up on Newcastle.
I did make a tweet today about the ad. I said, I'm not convinced that the footage of Cameron Smith or the Trebojevic brothers as children is actually them. The NRL's lied to me. No stars.
That's a good one. Oh, shit. That's a good one.
Someone replied and told me to lighten up. It's a bit of poetic license. And then they tweeted again, unless you've been sarcastic. I went, yeah, well done. You've caught on.
At this point, I shall close the register.
See, I knew it wasn't the Trebojevics when one of them didn't immediately limp off the backyard footy field injured.
Actually, that could have been involved in there. You could have had one of the millions of times that Matt Moylan got injured. That could have just been him sitting on the bench last week when he did his hamstring or whatever the hell, to be injured again.
Or Matt Moylan.
Pulling a calf watching a footy game. Oh, man. That would have been good.
Don't be mean.
Huh?
It's Matty Moylan, though.
Yeah, but you got to be mean to people who are less. You got to be nice to people who are less fortunate than you.
He's not less fortunate. He's earning quite a lot of money to sit there and
No,
be injured
I
the
meant
whole
I meant in intelligence.
time. We're not mocking his intelligence. We're just mocking his pathetic hamstrings.
Oh.
Do some more legwork.
Well, actually, when we did that, fuck, marry, and dump, I
Yes.
said to Clint that he was my fuck for the Sharks. He's like, but he'd pull a hamstring. I was like, no, he could just lay there and just not talk. Just be quiet.
If he could do a hamstring sitting down, then I'm sorry, he's not going to be much better when it comes to being in bed.
Just lay there and look pretty and don't talk.
That's pretty much it. Just get a poster.
Put a pillow.
Yeah.
Mud.
We're going down to Parthy, Freaky. How you doing there, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right. Oh, man. Well, I have to say, very happy with the NRL ad. I think it's a wonderful ad for the game. I'm really impressed with it. All these media dickheads that are saying stuff about it, they're just cunts, okay? I don't need to hear from these media cunts. And I hope everyone looks at the ad, enjoys it for what it is. I'm going to watch it a bunch of times, see all the little things that are in the ad, and yeah, I thought it was great.
Yep, agreed. I think it's a perfectly fine ad for what it is. I wasn't offended or upset or, irritated by the fact that I wasn't in it. Thank Christ I wasn't. What am I going to do? Sit there and type? But anyway, it's a bloody good ad. I've got no issue with it.
I don't think I really need an ad to get excited for the season. I think it just is what it is. It's an advertisement for the people playing the game, and that's enough for me. Like, if you need an ad to get excited about a game you've loved for 20 years, then you really don't love it.
Well said.
That's very true.
Well said. Well, I suppose that wraps up a very good episode.
Mm.
We've reviewed an ad. There is nothing we can't do.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for dropping in, Katey. It was a pleasure having you by.
Thanks for having me.
We'll let you go and put the kids to bed.
It's 20 past 12. They're asleep.
Yeah. You say that.
I think they're asleep.
You're
You're talking to another parent here.
Exactly. They're probably up playing Street Fighter or something.
Well, actually, I thought Brody was asleep the other night, and then I went on Instagram and I had a comment from him at 2:30 in the morning, and so he
There
got
you go.
busted.
That's hilarious.
He's probably playing Grand Theft Auto or something at the moment.
Oh no, he's probably watching anime or something. He's really into anime at the moment, so he probably knew about. Never mind.
Yeah. You might want to just go check to see what he's watching now after our
No, I don't want to know. I don't
Look,
want to know.
no,
He's an 11-year-old boy. I'm not busting in on him.
Just
at 20
knock
past 12.
knock first, count to 10.
I
Yeah.
couldn't believe the things that Katey was telling us about before the podcast. Like,
Oh,
whoa.
blue. Very blue.
Like, I was like, what the hell? I don't even know what this stuff is.
She just poisoned our fragile little minds.
Exactly.
I'm an influence.
Yeah.
Wow. Can't believe I'm going to have to bookmark this stuff now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, on that note, we've now soiled your reputation, Katey.
Yeah, I had a really good one to begin with, so that's sad.
Oh, well. You can just change your name and get a new one. It's all good.
Yeah, I might do that. Go after a boxer or something.
That's the way. That's the way. That was not at all subtle. Fantastic. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And we'll catch you on the next episode.